So I'm going to try to line this up with, if you saw my last video, with Mary Queen of Scots, who was like, so I had been following, I had said the King James the First, but that's related to Donald Trump, but so is the other end. So I'm going to go in the other end, okay, which is down the line of Mary Queen of Scots, but her parents, and that's how it ties to the King of Jerusalem, okay? It gets so confusing. Like, I think about what's truly royal, and it's like Jesus was the true royalty, first of all, okay? Did Jesus live like a royal? Absolutely not. So what was Jesus's message? The royalty should really be living like peasants. I mean, it was. I mean, and of course they don't, but that was his message, in my opinion, okay? But the way, and I don't want to blame all the royals, because I think many of them, like, I think King James the First was trying to do the right thing, but you know, it seems like it got off track so easily because people believed that God raises up the kings, because it says it in the Bible. But then Jesus's life was literally trying to show that if you're royalty, he was royal. This is how I want you to live. I'm just saying that as a peasant. What do I know, right? I think I know more than many of the royals. Let's put it that way. I do. I think this bloodline thing comes into it, and I think that Jesus made it pretty apparent that didn't matter, but it matters to this world, right? But if the royals wanted to truly be royals, instead of basing it on their bloodline, they should have acted like Jesus, because that was Jesus's message. I know none of them would like it, but it's the truth. Anyway, what I want to show is that the way it ties to Donald Trump being the King of Jerusalem, but also he was tied to King James the First. So again, this is Mary Queen of Scots. This is her son, who went on to become the King James the First of England, and he was the one that went on to, updated the Bible to the King James Version, okay? Her mother was Mary of Guise, who was married to the 5th King of Scotland. This is them, okay? King James the Fifth of Scotland and his second wife, Mary of Guise. That's where it gets very confusing with these people, too, because they've been married and have, So that's where all the fights come in, too, because it's like, okay, but you're not legitimate heir. You're not, because in their eyes, the bloodline was what made them the best to protect. But, okay, so I don't want to go off into that area. Anyway, so these were the parents of Mary, Queen of Scots. Mary of Guise, which this is Mary of Guise, I showed her in that first picture with Mary, Queen of Scots. Her parents, okay, we're following a different line now. Her parents were Claude, Duke of Guise, and Antoinette de Bourbon. So these were Mary of Guise's parents, okay? Again, then this all ties back to Mary, Queen of Scots, okay? So these would have been Mary, Queen of Scots' grandparents, I believe. Okay? So then you go to their parents, or you go to his parents, okay? The parent to Claude, Duke of Guise, was this man, which is Rene II, Duke of Lorraine, okay? Who was the King of Jerusalem. Does that make sense to people? So it goes through Mary, Queen of Scots' lineage through her mother, and then who her mother was married to. And it's all, if you look at it from a bloodline standpoint, it all is why the rightful heir to, why Israel did crown, even though I highly doubt that Donald Trump will ever run around and talk about how he's a king, because that would be really in poor taste to our country, which is why he doesn't talk about it. But I think it's important for people to realize, because even though, in my personal opinion, all this bloodline stuff shouldn't matter, it does to this world, which is why God said not. This is why Jesus said, don't attach to this world. But I think it matters in this regard. It's how God is using, so that you can tie these connections together and realize, is he trying to get you to see something? And what you are to see is that I'm going to use what is so precious to the royals, their bloodlines, to show his great glory, really. And the only way to do that is actually to do it through the bloodlines. In the Old Testament, God does raise up the kings. But again, God, I've said this, what God was looking for is who's the nation that wants to actually have me as their king? Because Israel for a little while said, yeah, God was their king. And then they said, we want a king. We want to be like all the other nations that have a king. We don't have one. We're going to bitch and complain. And so God was angry about it. So he raised up a king for him. But then they lost some freedoms because of it. So it's really the history of why America became America. And why I say America is literally in the book of Revelations, when it says to the church of Philadelphia, it's talking to America, because America's birthplace is Philadelphia, because Philadelphia means birthplace of America. Okay? So it's all, there's no coincidences here. It all ties. It's just this world has a lot of, we have a lot of elites. There's the higher educated elite that disregard that there's nothing demonic in this world. There's nothing evil. Oh, that can just be written off. I'm too educated for that. That's a whole elite crowd. Then, you have your science elite. They're pretty much the same group. Then you have your royal bloodlines elite, okay, that think, oh no, I'm from a special royal bloodline. I have special blood. And I think that Jesus's life puts all of them to shame. I do. I think Jesus's life literally was, he said, that's why he went to the people that weren't of royal bloodlines, because people want to, what this world did was turn Jesus's mother into this saint, okay? And Jesus didn't want that, because how did Jesus live? He was the true king of everybody here on this planet. Nobody getting higher than him. And yet he lived as a peasant. He didn't have the best fine linens. He wasn't out in his chariot. No, he literally lived as a peasant. So even though he would use the royal bloodline so that people can put these connections together, I think what he'd want you to really see is how America's founding, even though, we can argue about Columbus came here first, but a Viking man came here first. And we can argue, because this world will argue about this belongs to me, because this is what this world does, okay? And there's some truth to that, right? I mean, if you founded the land, then it belongs to you, okay? However, my point is that there's some good when it comes to the royal lines, okay? But there's going to always be bad actors, and that's why they try to get into these royal lines and these kingships, which was what was happening with the Catholics, which is what was happening with the Protestant, all of them, you can understand why they all splintered off into their own groups. You can get it. I don't think King James the First was trying to be a tyrant. I really don't. I think that what does God this is why I go back to this united thing all the time. Everybody, this world, this country will tell you over and over again that God wants everybody united, and when we're united, we're strong. Yeah, but Jesus and God over and over again, what they do, what God does is God separates. That's what He does. He continually separates. That's what Jesus did. You could say Jesus united Christians. He did. Because he was uniting a certain group of people, not everybody. Just saying. If anybody can follow what I'm saying. So he was the king of Jerusalem. And that is why that Donald Trump, Israel crowned him. Rightfully so. I mean, it is. You follow the era. So that's the line where Mary, Queen of Scots, is key in all of it, okay, because of her parents. But then her son, King James the First, went on to become King James the First and the 6th King of England. And he had great impact, and I don't think that he was a tyrant king. Did he believe there were wicked forces? He did, and I think he had good reason to believe that. And I think we live in a world that wants to make excuses that there's not truly evil wickedness around us, so that we'll believe the lie.